Hi everyone, in today's video I'm going to talk about Aries Shion, who is a very highly anticipated character for a really long time. Like everyone thought he would be released much earlier, but finally here he is now. Alright, so as usual I'll be going through his skill, his class, his constellation. Now I can tell you now he's absolutely fantastic character. He does came out slightly late because now he faced really tough competition with other characters. But I'll talk all about that towards the end of the video, and also maybe talk about my own source on whether you should try to get him or not. All right, I'm gonna start off with his ultimate. His ultimate, actually no, let me not start off with ultimate. Ultimate is something else. I'm gonna start off with his looping skill, Crystal Wall. So we already have Aris Mu with his Crystal Wall, which is like one of the strongest skill of all time because what happens, it reduces damage by half and also increase HP healing at the same time. Now, Aries Shion, if you look at it at the start, what it looks like is that you are also doing reducing damage. However, it's only 40%, so slightly lower than Aries Moon at this level. And also, it's come at a sacrifice of 20% of his max HP, which you may feel like, okay, that's so much worse than Aries Moon. However, what's going to get crazy is that once you actually have his clothes, not even to level 30, but just to level 20, what you're going to be able to do is increase that to 80% damage reduction. That is the highest damage reduction in the game. And that's what makes it absolutely crazy. So his Crystal Wall, once again, it's going to be a signature skill. I valued it just as strong as Aris Mu. Slight trade-off because you're not doing healing. However, you are getting the benefit of even higher damage reduction at the cost of HP. But still, very, very strong looping skill for sure. Then we move on to his passive. Let's do passive next. This basically says when his HP drops lower, he will actually take less damage with damage reduction, cap at 50%. This is so that he is in combination with his Crystal Wall, really. His Crystal Wall sacrifices his own HP. So this is kind of like his self-protection, so that even though he sacrificed his own HP, this is kind of like trying to help him, prevent him from dying from his own skill kind of thing. And then we move on to, let me do Ultimate next. Ultimate is basically his healing attack. What it's going to do is it's going to heal uh, damage equal to, wait, healing comes from, where is the healing? I swear he's able to heal. Oh yeah, also heal self by 100% damage dealt. Yeah, so this is basically his healing attack. So we already have his looping skill, which make him sacrifice HP. Then we have his passive, which try to protect him from when his HP is very too low. But now you also have his own self regeneration because he's going to do damage and also heal by 100% of the damage dealt. And because this also have an extra line of text, which basically says this level 3, at the level 3, it says guaranteed hit and also grants immunity for all interruption control. This basically means that when Aries Shion is releasing his ultimate, he's guaranteed to be able to do damage and therefore guaranteed to be able to heal. So this can't even be interrupted. So this is actually pretty nice as well. It kind of, once again, gives him that kind of self-sustain so he doesn't really die from the embarrassment of being killed off by his own skill, that kind of thing. And lastly, we'll move on to his trigger. So this is kind of his offensive support. And basically, this is that whenever he take damage. So note this is taking damage. So it doesn't benefit from him sacrificing his own HP. But what this is basically saying that when he take damage, he's gonna increase the attack and attacking speed of two back row ally by 8% for 8 seconds, up to 5 stacks. But also, this is going to get expanded to the whole team if you do have his constellation to the max. So on that note, let's talk about constellation, I guess. So at 3 out of 9, the trigger skill I just mentioned is going to be activated for all 3. But 9 out of 9, that's the absolute crazy one because 1 is going to now be active for your entire team. But second of all, it doesn't expire either. So before there was like a 8-second duration, but now because it doesn't expire and it's 5 stacks, at the highest level, you are increasing attack and attacking speed by 12%. So theoretically, you can increase for the entire duration of the battle your entire team by 60% attack and attacking speed, which is absolutely crazy. So his constellation is absolutely great. There's no point for 3 out of 9. You really want to aim for the 9 out of 9. And that's really to take advantage of his offensive support. If you're using him for a different purpose, then maybe you can ignore that, but I would recommend 9 out of 9 to be honest. Now, in terms of the other purpose, which I said, well, you may want to use Aries Shion for, that really comes from his clothes, and this is coming from the level 30 of his clothes. The text is really badly translated here, but I can tell you what it does is that at level 30, you are able to grant a crystal wall at the beginning for the first 5 seconds. So once again, this is a direct counter to the Sagittarius Seiya meta because now you are immune to all of the damage up front. And this is going to be absolutely great. And this is 80% as well. So right now, what you have is, let's say, Moses, for Athena Godclothes, for Astra Shun. All of them are able to do that. However, none of them is 80%. So that do mean if you're up against a really high leveled Sagittarius Seiya compared to yourself, so let's say the opponent is, let's say, 60 or 70 levels above you, you will still stand no chance because even if they reduce 35%, it's still going to be too much. And likewise in story maps, even if you reduce them by 30, 35, 40%, the enemy stats are so much higher than you, it's still going to hurt a lot. However, 80% reduction, we're talking about something completely different. And this is basically what makes Aries Shion so good in PvE and PvP because now you're able to essentially make sure your team definitely survive no matter how strong the enemy opponent is. And that is absolutely going to be great. And that kind of brings me to my verdict or my opinion on Aris Shun. How do you really want to? Sorry, you know what? Let's before jumping into that, let's talk about formations. I remember I know we talk about formation first. Now I'm not going to give a dedicated formation for Aris Shun purely because he's a defensive character, right? So he is gonna be suitable for a lot of occasions, especially with his ability to prevent open attack. He's just gonna be very adaptable. So you can pair him up with most characters. He is normally very commonly paired with, I would say, Aris Mu. So you kind of have the double Aris formation. That, to be honest, I think is like the best defensive support. Well, maybe Aris Mu plus a Sinner close. So yeah, Aris Mu is absolutely essential, but the other position can be Sherm or a Sinner close. They have slightly different purposes, but that combo is normally the best defensive duo out there. It's literally the timing lapse between the two crystal walls is going to pretty much protect your team for the entire time. If you pair up with a Sinner Gokus and Iris Mu, what you're going to get is a bit more consistency and less of an overlap, so you're always going to get a constant damage reduction. However, what you're able to do with Iris Shun and Iris Mu together is that you have a much higher damage reduction value, and then therefore you're almost going to not take any damage at all for a really short amount of time. And the idea is that you heal up during that short amount of time. So that's kind of what you want to do. But yeah, normally Aris Shun, because he sacrificed his own HP, even though he does have a way of self-regenerate, that's not going to be the best way to preserve him. So you definitely want to place Aris Shun with another healer, and Aris Mu is definitely going to be the best healer available. So I definitely recommend you pair them two up together. If not, then the next best option is probably going to be Hound that steering. But yeah, definitely pair Aris Shun with another defensive healer, and then you have really solid defense there, and you're pretty much going to be immune to most of the damage, and that's possibly the most defensive formation you can go as well. So definitely recommend that. But now let's move on to the final point, which is, do you actually want to pull Aris Shun with? No, he's an absolutely fantastic character. I definitely recommend him, and I am putting him myself personally. If you do want to take me as a reference, although the situation do differ per person, the reason why now, normally, if Aris Shun's out, it's almost going to be a no-brainer. The reason why is slightly complicated now is because I think the Gold Close has been out, and that's like a direct replacement and almost an upgrade in certain way for Aris Shun. And also, we even have an Astro Shun out now. Oh, I'm getting the names mess up. Astro Shun released now, which is you can able to get him for free but redeem free currency rather than resorting to petals for a synagogue clause, for golden arrows, for Aris Shun. So therefore, you actually now have like a free to play version of this opening defense as well. And because of that, you actually now face really fierce competition on whether you actually need Aries Shion. And on top of that, in the same banner, we also have Papillon Mule, which is another really good character, mainly for PvP. Like in PvE, he's like rubbish, but in PvP, he's a really good character as well. And now he basically faces a lot of tough competition because you essentially already have a slightly upgraded version of him and also a more budget friendly version of him. And it's almost asking the question of do you need a third character who's able to do the same thing? And especially if you already have Moses, who is pretty much doing the same thing as well, you are going to have four characters fitting the same role. And even in Galaxian War Inter-server, you only need to fill three teams. So this is like an overkill. And my personal thought is that if you really want Papillon Mule, I think you can. But because he's still very much PvP focused, so it really depends on how much pressure do you have on PvP, what kind of opponents are you coming up against, and you want to use that to judge whether it's worth getting Papillon Mule. If it's not worth for you to get Papillon Mule, then I would definitely recommend Aries Shion, even if you already have Goku's Asina or Astro Shion. And the reason for this is that even if for whatever reason you have three or even four characters filling the same role, um, he is still gonna have a very important place in story map because that 80% damage reduction honestly is the best way to protect your team. Like he is doing that job better than Asina Goku's, better than any of the other character in the game. So if we are purely looking from story map progression, but seriously, I don't think there's any character who can replace him in terms of protecting your team at the start of the battle. And honestly, with how overpowered the enemies are in story maps and how they're just able to wipe you out with their normal attack, you really need this kind of protection if you're trying to progress as far as possible. And by as far as possible, what I mean is that you'll be constantly hitting that kind of power resonance level. And for that, in order for you to do that and push yourself all the way to the limit, he's gonna help you tremendously in that. So even if you are you already have Astro Shun or a thing that got close doing the same thing, I would still recommend Aries Shun because he is still be able to do that. Maybe if you have Moses as well, if you do actually have four, then maybe save your golden arrows for Papillon Mule, maybe that. But definitely, if you only have two characters, only have a Synagogue or only have Astro Shun or both of them, as long as you still need a third opening attack damage reduction character, Aries Shion for me is a must-have. And even though as good as Papillon Mule is in PvP, I'm still gonna personally recommend Shion on top of him. So that's gonna be my personal opinion.